basically done. Isn't this cool? We are also basically done in terms of time. But I spent the last couple of weeks or so doing weird stuff, right? Kind of combining what we have seen into other places. I will not be here on the last week of classes. I lied to you. So I will not be here in the last week of classes. I'll record lectures on Swing and GUIs. Not because anybody does GUIs in Java anymore, but because GUIs are very good for showing object-oriented stuff. You have classes for each one of the widgets and things like that. So it's interesting to learn it as practice for object-oriented stuff, not as something. I guess somebody is writing GUIs today in Java, but I don't know who. Much less with Swing, which is kind of the previous generation technology, but it still works fairly well. Fairly easy to get used to. But let me ask you this, because I wanted to do something with files and exceptions, right? We have covered this stuff. Now let's go do stuff. Did you like the adventure example? Or should we build something else? Should we build something like a phone book or something like that? Everybody has to build a phone book at least once in their career.
It's just fun. Did you like the adventure, or should we do something exciting like a phone book?
Really, really cool stuff, man. Should we build on top of the adventure so that we can actually read it from a file? Maybe throw exceptions if stuff doesn't work. Or not. What should we do? Do something like a phone book?
The other option, a phone book?
Something like a standard database, a product catalog, a whatever, without the database, right? You're building it in memory.
Let's just do something from scratch that way. Do the basics all over again.
Okay. Phone book or product catalog? Phone book? Okay. Let's do a phone book. Okay, couldn't resist. It's not very fun, but hey. Okay, so we are going to have a phone book, right? Now, let me actually do, and this is a phone book like the stuff, like your contacts app on your phone, right? Something like that, right? So let's do entry. What does an entry in your phone book contain? First name, which is what?
String.
Okay, what's the telephone number?
Probably a string.
Yes, telephone numbers are really weird things. They're numbers, but they're not really numbers. They're strings. You never add them. When you add, right? So they're weird stuff. So let me do a string phone number. Should we do one string for phone number? Or should we allow for multiple phone numbers? Multiple? So we could do list of string phone numbers. But do we want to just have a bunch of phone numbers, or do we want to have
Like homework.
homework and those things? What do we want to do?
That three. Just three of them.
Sorry?
No one has a home phone anymore, so this is like
Just
phone and work.
keep the phone numbers, or do we want to do? What do we want to do?
Hopefully, there's like default options, but it's really whatever you want to put in there.
But so you're still having two things. You're not just keeping a string. You're keeping a thing that has two strings, a phone number and a type. Right? Does that make sense? So we should create that thing, right? Phone number entry, and you can see how my brain is clouded. One of the standard things, right, is if you cannot think of a good name, you're probably not thinking of it right. And so phone number entry is kind of borderline idiotic. On the other hand, we are doing it on the fly. You normally talk and think of a good name for it.
Phone number table. I mean, what are you gonna make a hash table or something?
I would just have a list, but we can do string number and then string type. Is that reasonable? I'm gonna do horrible things. Here's the deal. We have kind of two kinds of objects. We have objects that are going to have behavior and things, and for those we want to make everything private and things like that. Then we have objects that are just data. They're not going to have a lot of intelligence. So for those, you can do either of two things. If you follow the object-oriented religion, what should you do? Everything private and create getters and setters. Why? Because God mandated that all your objects have private stuff and you have getters and setters, right? If not, just say, screw this, everything is public, right? Because this guy doesn't have, right? It's just, yeah. We're going to define getters and setters for every method. You might as well make it everything public. And so,
Wait, so if it's public, you can just say phone number entry dot.
number equals Joe.
You can't do that if it's private.
If it's private, no, but I can give you a set number method where you can do it,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
right? And so if I give you the method, then I allow for, I could check that, right? If I give you a set number method, right, then I could check that the number only has digits, or digits and dashes, right? Maybe 10, maybe who knows what the heck, because you may be doing international phone numbers, right? But I could do things like that. If I just give you access to do it, then you can just put whatever you want in there. What do we want to do?
So why are we making them public?
Why are we making them public? Because there is nothing that I want to do to them. And actually, because we have 45 minutes, or 75 minutes.
Let's do getter and setter.
Let's do getter and setter? Okay. Then make them private.
It is super easy.
Yes, I'm gonna do it the other horrible way. Actually, let's do this one manually, right? What's my getter look like? Public string
Get number.
get number.
And
Right? Actually, I want a constructor.
We always need that.
You don't. You can have, if you don't, there's an empty constructor that doesn't do a thing. And so, but I always want one.
You don't need to declare the default constructor.
If you don't declare any constructors, then a default one is created. If you declare any constructor, then that's it. You cannot do the other one.
Oh, okay. So the default goes away.
So I could do, okay, let me let you do that. I have a constructor that takes no arguments and does nothing. It's not the default constructor anymore because I just created it. It's not default. It's mine. And then do this one. This dot number. I should have a set number. It is void and it takes Does this make sense? So I'll do the same thing for this other guy.
Well, that was a waste of 3 minutes. You could have just been public.
You, thank you. And
Do you use IntelliJ?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
Oh.
know the
I'm gonna do it on the next one.
Yeah, the more I learn about it, there's a very easy way to add
Does this make sense?
setters and like
Right? We have done it. It's cool. Now, right? So now this is gonna have a list of phone number entry phone numbers, right? Make these things private.
So should we? Well, I guess.
Should we what? Sorry. And then I'm gonna do this code generate constructor.
This is why they take
These two guys. Yeah.
That's the easy one. You could do the creators and setters.
Code
Alright.
generate.
Eventually there will be ones that just generate the whole program. And
You
they
you
won't
can.
program.
They have the same problem. Is this good? Is this better than having this stuff public?
In this way, like you said, probably not because you're not doing any checks and it's not really going to matter. But if we were doing
It allows me for more flexibility, right? But the problem is that now instead of having 5 lines of code, now I have 40, right? And I need to read this 40 because maybe it does some checking, right? So now I need to go look and maybe it does stuff in the middle, right? In fact, I would probably do eliminate this one and do add a phone number.
Commenting, you can make it clear pretty quickly. You know.
I could
These
do,
other getters and setters go to the real code.
well, but you still have to, it's still code. The best code is the one you didn't write. That one doesn't have any bugs whatsoever.
You spend 90% of the time debugging and 10% of the time writing bugs.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we do. So let's do it like this. So what would I do? This dot, I would do, sorry, phone numbers dot add new phone number entry of number. Does this make sense-ish? So we don't have a set for phone numbers, right? You can't just change all the phone numbers at once. You can keep adding. Oh, and I guess you're doomed. You can never remove them. This makes sense?
How do you call it string type?
Because it's the phone type, phone number types, homework.
Oh, okay.
So one, so two.
So now we can have a phone book class. What's it going to have? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
What you did to import the utility?
Sorry?
What you did right there to import the utility?
Oh, option enter on my Mac, but it's
Oh,
there's a different. You right click on it.
yeah, I tried to right click it, but it
You
didn't
right
work.
click on it and you do.
Yeah, I tried to do
Because if
it
you
that
hover
way.
over it, it'll
Yeah.
sometimes it'll
It should have something in here.
Yeah, I tried by right clicking and say, well, let me do
I can never remember.
it's alt enter on
It depends on whether you have Linux, Windows, or Mac.
so
What's the key combination?
you hold
But it
Option
does
and,
tell you, look. It's telling me that thing, and it's telling me how the heck to get it.
What's that thing?
It's the option key.
The
That
option-
weird symbol is the option key, and the arrow is enter.
Okay, option and enter.
Option is out in every other machine except the Mac.
Okay.
I mean, I had to manually write in all the, pound include list.h or whatever. back in the old
Here's the deal. It's not a bad idea. You should be, right? I didn't show you this until now, right? Because I want your fingers to memorize that stuff, right? And your fingers should memorize the syntax because you're going to do it on paper in the final, right? But also because your company may use IntelliJ or Eclipse or whatever else, right? So you don't want to specialize too much yet. When you're doing it 8 hours a day, then you specialize in one of them and you memorize the commands and you set up your macros on VI so that it does the magic for you, but not yet. That's my. In fact, I'm doomed because I have Windows. I have mostly Linux and Mac. I have Windows, but I never use it. So the keystrokes are different. Let's do something fun. Let's keep an index. It's not good. Okay, well. It means whatever the heck was on the other side. It is this stuff. it just says, I don't have to repeat. It's whatever was on the other side. So it's a little bit of type inference from Java. So this is my phone book. What can I do to it? Yes, sorry.
Well, no, this is just kind of goes back to what you talked about before. So, because this kind of actually irritates me sometimes. So, it's nice that where you said, you know, they do the automatic import. But like there are times where if you go in and tell it, you know you're going to need these packages, but you do it before you define anything below, it'll delete it.
Oh.
Like in this case, see now it's switched. So it was doing a 1x1 where it had map, hash map,
Yes,
list,
yes.
array list, but then it got too big enough where it said java.util.
Star.
I have a feeling were you to ask us on a test, and I were to put that would probably. How do you import array list?
On a test, I wouldn't ask you that stuff. But yeah, some people. We had one guy at work that was very, very, very picky about this stuff, and he never liked this. And so there are ways you can set up IntelliJ to tell it after how many, like 5 is star, or 10, or 20, or never, or 3. I think 3 is the default. Star means all. But the problem is that you are polluting your namespace. You are importing stuff that you are not using. So you may end up somewhere trying to define a hash set, and you didn't want the one from Java util.
But if you noticed, because it had it like list and array list, and then map and hash map, and then set, and then like after it had that many, it was like, okay, there's enough now. We're just gonna import.
Yeah. So you can set IntelliJ to do the magic for you, or not.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess it doesn't make sense to know the actual packages or the libraries.
I'm just gonna say import Java.star for
Well, that's what I mean.
Do we want to do IDs? Should an entry have an ID separate from the first and last name?
So an entry is what? It's the first name, it's the last name,
And a bunch of phone numbers.
and the list of phone numbers.
Actually,
I mean, I guess in your real one, you can put two people.
yeah. But we are cheating today. Right? Public list of entry.
So those maps are going to have all of the entries that have like a particular first name.
Yep. That's how we can use maps. How do you add an entry? I'm going to do entry list. First of all, entry list dot add e, right? Now, how do I add it to entries by first name? I need to check if entries by first name contains key e dot first name. Yeah, get first name. That's good enough. If there is already one in there, right, then add it to this set.
You gotta compare first name and last name.
Well, the first one is just by first name, right? Dot get of There's probably a slightly better way to do this, but how about this?
Alright, so we're saying if our hash table entries by first name contains the key, which is the first name of the entry we're trying to add, then we want to go, what are get on? We want to go to the hash table and get.
If it's already there, so we have a set. We have a set of entries, not one entry. So we are gonna get the set of entries by doing this, and then to that set of entries we are gonna add this one.
And then if it's not in there, we're gonna create a new set.
One sec. I'm seeing the wheels turning. You don't see them turn.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm just still lost by the get. I get first
What does
name,
this return?
entries? That's gonna return string. No,
What's entries by first name?
that's your hash table
It's a hash table from string to what?
to entry.
No,
Oh, to the set.
to a set of entries. So that's gonna return the set of entries associated with that first name. And to that set of entries, I'm gonna add this other entry. Yep.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
It just seems like if it's already got that first name, how are you gonna add that?
It's not the first name. It's the first name that maps to a bunch of entries, right? So imagine that there is 2 people called Orlando already, right? So entries by first name dot get Orlando is gonna return you a set with 2 entries already. And you're trying to add a third one, right? So what you're gonna do is get that set of 2 entries and add one more to it. So now you get 3.
But you're just adding one more Orlando to the setup already.
Yes,
Okay.
one more
Alright.
entry to the set associated with Orlando.
That's what did
Okay.
why I wasn't following.
So you're able to add more than one person same name.
I'm able to add more than one person with the same first name, which
First-
was
Okay.
right, and then I'm gonna do if it's not there, right? Then I need to create a set of entries, add that entry, and insert that into the map.
Okay.
And there may be a nicer way to initialize a set with one entry, but this one works. And then I need to do the same for last name.
All this does is it just adds another entry.
Yes.
I think a lot of times the code's a lot easier to understand if you just read the names of all the methods and functions. Like, I skip that part, and then I just go to what the code's doing.
Yeah, no, actually that is the point, right? Your methods should be named so that they tell you what they're doing, right?
Yeah, I'm not used to that. I'm used to bad method names. You have to understand what the code says.
You should, yeah, there is a balance, but yeah, like the clean code guys tend to say you should never even have comments, right? Your names should be perfect and all should be just. But I do measure code goodness in WTS per minute. How long can you read it before you go, what the?
When I was in high school, like every one of my functions, I would just name them like X or like function 55 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then eventually it would get to the point like, oh, I should really comment this or name this. And
And the poor guy who's gonna be maintaining that is you. So.
Well, I think back in the past, didn't they have a lot of code that was written like go to line 200, and then it would do this code like go to line 50
Not for a long time. Like
decades ago.
Gotus were bad in my time, and I've been doing this 20-something years. I'm old. Life sucks sometimes. Okay, so this is how we add an entry. Maybe. This one should be last name. This is how you introduce errors. Seems reasonable, right? So let's. Oh. Does this make sense? So let's try new class. Let me call it main. Not PSVM. I'm going to declare a phone book PB equals new phone book. Let me do this. Oh, I'm doing add entry, which is horrible, but that's okay. Entry E equals new entry. First name, Orlando, Bloom, E dot add phone number, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me do this. 2. Does this make sense? So now we should be able to do actually, let's do this. Oh God, I'm gonna cheat. Come here and generate one more important thing.
Output to file.
ToString. And the same here.
Did you include all 3 variables?
Yeah. So that I can print that thingy, right? So void print entries takes a collection of entry so I can do print entries pb dot get entries
Why is print entries a collection and not, an array list or?
because the higher up the hierarchy you go, the least restricted you make your things, the more, right? So this would work given that I'm only using collection. What's it complaining? Oh, yeah. Later. If I make it array list, right? If I make it array list, that's horrible because the other guys are returning lists, right? Not even array list. I don't care which kind of list. I'm just gonna iterate for it. If I make it a list, it would not allow me to print a set. Right? Because a set is not a list. It doesn't have get and put. Get and put. Put, not put.
What
Get with index.
are we intending to print with print entries then?
Any kind of bunches of entries. Basically, whatever pb.get entries or whatever pb.get entries for first time return. Collection is kind of the most general thing. It only allows you to add and to iterate.
I thought you'd say that. I wasn't sure if I was missing something.
No. And the higher you do it, right? If not, you need to define one for sets and one for lists.
Yeah.
Or one for. So the.
It makes sense. I haven't done it before. Trying to make sure that I'm right.
let's see. Maybe it will even work. Ah, null pointer exception. Woohoo! Oh, because this guy never got initialized.
Is there, I guess, in keeping, so right here, for example, is there a best practice, like, even though when you're a constructor,
Do you
don't
put it
call-
here or in the
Yeah.
constructor?
Yeah.
I tend to. There is a. Basically, there are two competing things. One is initialization should go in the constructor because you know where to find it, right? You go look at the constructor. The other one is initialization should be next to where the closest to where the variable is defined, because that way you don't get lost, right? And so in this case, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Kind of, like, often the case, pick one and just be consistent.
Yes. Yes. Or let your team harass you for it and change to whatever they prefer.
Okay.
So this sort of kind of works, right?
Why is printing all this?
Why is it printing all this? Because we told it to print all this. Told it to print all entries and then call get entries, right? And that should get these two guys, all of the entries. Then we told it get entries for first name. And so it's only getting the entries with the first name of Orlando.
Because each contact has its first name, last name,
And a bunch of
and we
phone
made
numbers.
That, that class for the phone numbers to hold each phone number.
Yeah, so in this case, right, this guy has one, this guy has two phone numbers.
So print entries is going to print all the entries that have.
Print entries is going to print all the entries that we give it.
Yeah, all the. In this case, it's everyone where there's something maps to Orlando.
For this one, right, this would return the entries with first name Orlando.
Yeah, but that one will print anything. This is printing all entries. Okay, I thought you were doing a second.
Print entries prints all the entries that you give it, right? It's just that we are passing it different things. We either pass it all the entries or we pass it this guy.
How would you do one that prints all the entries where one of the entries is Orlando? Like, it's like first name, last name, location. You could have Orlando, Florida, first name Orlando.
We could do things to combine collections, right? One is right. We could, given that they're sets, set returning
It
a
is a
set.
set? Oh, okay.
Maybe. Where am I returning here? Collection. Let me be more specific to allow my client to do stuff without having to transform it.
So here's where you do want to be specific. So if you want to call specific operations on it.
You want to be specific up until the depends. Here's the deal. You want to be specific up to the interface. Almost never you should return the class, right? Where you have the interface, but it is meaning. It is meaning wise. What should you return if I ask you to give me all the entries, right? Does it make sense for you to return something that's not a set? Would it make sense for you to just give me a list, right? Without requiring no duplicates? Yeah, depending on the implementation, it could make sense, right? So maybe I shouldn't make it be a set. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're gonna have to think about it.
So yeah, when we do this stuff, we change it, right? You can usually change it. There is kind of a first stage of a project where you're changing it all the time. And once it congeals, once it goes to other people using it, then you can't change it ever again. Ish. But. So if I make these sets instead of, then I could do, this is a set dot intersect. Oh. God, Java doesn't have that stuff. Why are we doing this thing? Oh God, no, don't define this thing is. It may be horrible, but the set interface may not have intersection. And there is union. Oh God.
I'm not sure why we need union or intersect at all. Why don't we just say that it contains one of those? One of the.
That's because I'm outside, right?
Okay.
Oh, you want to do it inside?
I mean, I guess that's how I imagined it. Yeah. At some point, you get to the set and you say, does it, it's one of the entry. You get to the.
This is how you
the
do
phone
it.
entry, which I guess could be a set.
This is how you do it. New set. Ah. Oh, I need to do hash set. God. I could do this, and that would print the same thing.
You got extra. Yeah, right there.
Not anymore. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's just gonna print all the ones that have the first name Orlando.
Yes.
So how do you do one that
One
has
sec.
any of them?
Let's see. Let's see if it actually works.
Get it to work first.
Oh, this horrible thing doesn't let me. There is an add all, but it doesn't return. I hate you thingies. How to set of entry. First or last?
Well, you're doing them one at a time.
Combining sets, right? How do we know that this stuff works? print it, right?
It doesn't give an error.
It doesn't give an error. We ought to write tests, right? And this is kind of a test-ish, right? But then what's the problem with writing your test like this? Say, oh, I'm done, right? It works.
Might not.
What do you...
Multiple conditions.
You may have more conditions and you end up deleting this stuff and adding, right? Just let me delete the main and add other stuff. So you lose your tests, right? You may decide to implement it in different ways, and if you lose your tests, you are in trouble, right? So what we can do is create tests. We do have tests.
Is this what all the Gradle stuff is?
Yeah, it's all the grader and the detailed tests and things like that.
I think of Gradle as a grader, but it's not.
Gradle,
it's
no.
not just grading. Think of it as just the grader stuff.
Does it recognize it? Yeah, it does. I didn't do any testing, right? So assert dot assert equals, you can assert things, right? So this is what I expect, and this is what I got. And so if I were to run this, it would work again. I could do,
So this is the at test.
oh, in Java, you can annotate your code, right? Just like we did with @override. For JUnit, you annotate with @test. You say, this is a test. Go run a JUnit. And that's this guy. Now, if we were to do this, 1, 0,
It's basically just like a comment that if it's not a test, it'll let you know.
well, yes.
Yeah.
So now it will tell me, no, that is incorrect, right? So I can go and make this kind of stuff.
Well, we've already been doing this for 9 assignments. You know, every assignment.
Well, but I gave you this stuff.
Every assignment, I go into the Gradle and I change all the numbers so it matches my output. I'm an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, unless you're submitting your test file as well, it's not going to match with emails.
No, it wouldn't really work.
Well, you can submit those. You can try to merge those.
Well, I think it wouldn't notice that there's a difference in the Gradle file. I probably wind up not getting 100.
So I would do stuff like,
Can you, I've had to do this once before, but I don't remember. Tell us how to actually create the test.
what do you mean?
Like, isn't there like a setting you need to change?
Oh,
When I do like even add test, like it doesn't see it. There's
I
a setting
know.
you need to change to be able to run.
Well,
the test.
I cheated, and I always start from this. Yes. Ah. I cheat and I start from this. How would you do it?
Well, don't we have this in our assignments folder?
You do have it all over in your assignments folder. So that's the easiest way. Because I'm adding JUnit. There is, you can make source test. You should be able to just make it and IntelliJ may recognize it. But I am doing it with this. God, I don't know. I have no clue how you, because it's not a Java problem, it's an IntelliJ problem,
Right. Yeah.
right? Nah, I have no clue. So we could do stuff like pb.addEntry, make Orlando Bloom. Um, 2 comma pb. So I could ask for things like this. Oh. Yeah, of course there's not that stuff. Never mind. And it worked, right? So I could do something like this, which would actually be wrong, and get it to not pass. Yeah. And it tells me, right? Expected 2, but I actually got 1. You were probably getting some of these, right? And fixing them. Either doing it like this or through Gradle W test or something like that, right? I can fix it by doing this. Yay! I will try to be doing this for the next couple of sessions because what I really want to infect you with is 2 things. Well, hopefully, throughout this class, I've actually changed your brain. You now have started to think as a programmer. You now have started to think about details, and you now have started to ask, wait, is this a list or a set? Can I have duplicates? How much? Is this an int or a float? Stuff that you never asked yourself before, right? You should be able to kind of, it becomes occupational hazard, right? You start thinking in a different way. And hopefully we achieve that, and you will keep doing that forever. The other 2 things that I want to infect you with that are not directly part of the class is version control. I want you guys to version control everything, right? You guys should have everything on GitLab or GitHub or Git something, right? Why? First of all, it means makes things a lot harder to mess up, right? You have a backup somewhere in the cloud, right? You keep track of all your versions, right? The other thing is that is probably the best portfolio you can have, right? If you do something like GitLab, right, it allows you for free, unlimited number of repos, both private and public. So you can make private ones for your homework, and then public ones for other stuff that you do. I would really appreciate it if you don't make the repo for this class public, because the guys from following years would be able to not learn and just get the assignments, right? So, but, right, other stuff that you do, you should be putting it on GitLab, right? So that if and when you get to the point where you should, when you start applying for jobs and things like that, for programming jobs, you can just say, oh, and here's my GitLab, right? Here's all this stuff that I have done. So that gets you a leg ahead. I use it mostly for, once I learn something, I make really tiny examples and put them there so that I can relearn way faster the next time, right? But you guys should have that. The other thing that I want to infect you with is this. You should, every time you see the program, create unit tests, right? The extreme version of this is test-driven development. Test first. You write your tests first. They don't work. Then you write code to fix them. I tend to not do that. But it's not a bad idea. It is a very good idea to write some unit tests that kind of verify that what you thought is happening is happening. If you do that, then when something breaks, you have a clue about where could it be, right? You build your stuff in steps, testing at every step, and that becomes good and easy. Cool. Shall we? Yeah. And you're doing assert equals or not equals, or there's a bunch of other things. This is JUnit, which is one of the ways of doing this. Any questions on this test? You have probably seen the code, right? For some of the other, for some of the assignments.
Because some of the assignments, it's like, what are you talking about? I did this perfect, and I look at it, and it's like maybe I thought maybe your thing was wrong, and then it turns out no, my thing was wrong.
Well,
so I wound up looking at it.
My thing is right by definition, right?
Yeah.
This is what your code is supposed to do. If it didn't do that, then the problem's with your code. The compiler is never wrong. Sometimes it is.
Yeah, I was like writing you a note, like, oh, there's a problem in your Gradle, like. And that, every single time I'd always be the one who was wrong. It turned out.
I got several emails like, my code works perfectly, it just doesn't pass the test. Just like, wait. The definition of works is it passes the test.
Right after I sent an email like that, I felt stupid. I was like, oh wait, no, this is so I wrote another email, and I was like, oh, I'm wrong.
But it is a good idea to at least write some unit tests, right? Sometimes it's hard. It isn't always easy to test, but you should at least be doing as many of these as makes sense. I think I'm gonna stop here, and next class we'll read this stuff from files and write it to files. Yeah, 5 minutes is too little even for writing. Maybe you can write it to a file. Nah, we'll do it next class. We'll see how to write and then how to read and parse and do those things. Yes, I will. Right now. Good idea. Let me stop recording and then go upload.